Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this, the Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And if you want to keep up with all things Clown Decade, please do subscribe to the channel and of course become a channel member. And today we're going through a couple of Politics Joe videos where they have been doing some reporting on the what can only be described as catastrophic launch of your party, the Jeremy Corbyn with Zara Sultana, I guess, political movement at this point. I'm not actually sure if are they on the electoral register? It turns out they are and have been since September, which does beg the question as to why Ben Habib's Advance UK is struggling to get on the political party register, but well, there we go. So it is actually a registered party rather than just being a political movement, but there we go. But anyway, there has been a lot of questions around your party's launch. How are you going to reconcile social conservative Islamists such as the Gaza Independents, who managed to actually campaign to ban Israeli Tel Aviv fans from going to Aston Villa when there was still a little bit of unrest there, with people like Zara Sultana, who were incredibly socially progressive and of course quite communist to the point that they absolutely hate landlords. And guess what? Every single one of the Gaza Independents is a massive landlord. So there was political, ideological conflicts from the very beginning, which also exist in the Greens, and this is the thing. Even as recently as yesterday, there was an exclusive on Left Foot Forward, where Zach Polanski and Jeremy Corbyn slammed Rupert Lowe for his utterly repulsive and deeply un-British social media comments, and I have no doubt in my mind that I would probably largely agree with what Rupert Lowe said. It was basic illegal migrants bad, so yes, I am on Rupert Lowe's side of this, of course. But this is the thing. The people in your party and the people in the Greens effectively agree on 90% of things, and it's, at least from the outside, it's very difficult to actually understand what the ideological differences are. People have been lamenting about how the right split constantly, but the right are far more united than the left. There's basically no difference between Jeremy Corbyn and Zach Polanski's politics because, well, Zach Polanski might be a massive fake, but ultimately he's not really saying anything particularly different to Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, and they just cannot work together. It's all very odd. And so in this video I'm going through Politics Joe's reports on, well, what's going on with your party and how the launch was, and no doubt it'll be very interesting, so let's get into it.
It was billed as an opportunity to build something new, something free of the tight shackles of Labour Party meetings, the process, the factionalism.
Yeah, and that already exists in the Green Party, though. This is what's very confusing to a lot of outsiders. The other thing with the Green Party is that you don't actually need much patience for entryism. They have a new leadership vote every 2 years, because long-term planning is apparently not in the modern communists' playbook. It's all just, oh, how can we make as many changes as possible as soon as possible? I mean, how often do you hear Zach Polanski talk about climate change? And this is the thing, I think Zach Polanski is actually going to slowly kill the Green Party, because ultimately he has absolutely nothing but platitudes to say, which can kind of get you a base level of about, I don't know, 5 to 10% of the electorate, but as time goes on and he's scrutinised more and more, I think they're going to lose that kind of base level boomer vote who are voting for the Greens because they think they're conservationists. And they're not. They're not at all. They don't talk about that anymore at all. They talk about basically what Jeremy Corbyn's party was talking about back in 2017, which at least made some attempt to make a serious manifesto, but I can't see that happening with the Greens, and I think as they come under more scrutiny, it's only going to make reform more popular as a vote to keep the Greens out. You know, everyone talks about tactical voting against reform, and there will be quite a lot of it, but there's also going to be tactical voting against the Greens, Labour, and well, I mean, the Tories are pretty much already dead, so there we go. I say that despite them coming second in a couple of polls recently. That's how much the left have split, but there we go.
It was meant to be a home for socialists, ousted from their political home by Keir Starmer. But the process has been marred by infighting, public spats, and threats of legal action.
Yeah, what's happened here is pretty much what I thought worst case scenario would be with Rupert Lowe leaving Reform, where there would be an awful, like a split straight down the middle of Reform. And as it actually turned out, it was only about, I don't know, maybe 5% of Reform that were actually staying there for Mr. Lowe. And since he's left, the party's already, well, only grown, really. Whereas in the first couple of hypothetical polls that involved Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party, they were polling at 10 to 15%, and then almost overnight, since the public spats, nobody really talks about them anymore. It's all very interesting. On top of that, there's a whole load of other leftist groups within universities and with recent graduates, plus lifelong communists, that all split and infight and all have different ideas, and effectively quite a few of them have started trying to do entryism into your party as if you need to do entryism there because they agree with 90% of what you want anyway. Whereas other groups seem to think that the Green Party is the way to go. I mean, if you want updates on this, Patrick over on the Wolves of Westminster podcast, which I run on my channel, does tend to bring this up every other week because he keeps his eye on them. And this is why I'm quite hopeful for the future, because as much as there's a bit of a meme that the right wing split, yeah, that is absolutely true. I mean, Advance is still trying to become a political party, though I'm very cynical about whether Ben Habib's seriously trying to do that while not getting Musk's money. But, well, your party's having kind of the opposite issue, where they are actually registered and they are falling apart at the seams. Because ultimately, I mean, voters, really, where they're going to go? They're going to go to the Greens because they're way more established, and somehow Jeremy Corbyn has lost all the goodwill people had for him because of this whole infighting thing, and he's clearly very lazy.
Today I'm going to talk to you about the floating £800,000, who had control of it, where it is now, and what possibly happens next.
I'm sure they'll go into it, but the launch of this was just a disaster as well. Zara Sultana basically went rogue, said, hey, here's how you can sign up, probably because she had a load of friends saying, you need to get a move on, we need to destroy Labour, blah, blah, blah. And obviously Jeremy Corbyn and the rest of them, because they are shrewd businessmen, frankly, knew that you had, the very least, had to do things by the book. And because Zara Sultana didn't, she ended up nearly being kicked out of the party. She's still in, but not leader anymore, I believe. And, well, they also have lost all of the details and money that came along with the people who signed up to Zara Sultana's link. I think the only reason they're not getting sued is because, well, people would look down on the people that would try to sue them for not being comrades.
MOU Operations is the registered company at the centre of this furore. It was incorporated in April of this year, established to support the creation of an alliance of progressive community independents, with Corbyn playing a central role in its formation.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, starting a new party on a national scale is very difficult, and you need an awful lot of money behind it. I'm going to be bringing Advanced in quite a lot to this conversation, because I think there's a lot of comparisons to make there. And obviously with the whole Advance thing, you have Ben Habib who's saying he will put in £300,000 as soon as he had £300,000 from members, where he thought he'd get 30,000 at a tenner each. Yes, I got that the wrong way round. To end up with £600,000, and even that's on the low end of funding a national party. Hence, he's obviously hoping for Elon Musk's money, but Elon Musk has plenty of other issues to worry about. With your party, I think they are mostly just relying on both, I guess, donations from true believers, and of course, the membership fee. And I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they will easily get tens, if not over 100,000 members, because Corbyn Mania was mental back in the day. Well, that would have been the case if they didn't completely screw it up in the first place, which is entirely what this video is about, so let's continue.
Up until Wednesday evening, MOU Operations had 3 directors. There was Jamie Driscoll, the former Labour Metro Mayor of the North of Tyne Combined Authority. He resigned from the party after a Morgan McSweeney crackdown on Corbyn-loyal candidates were blocked from selection. Then the former MP Beth Winter, who quit Labour in late 2024, citing the party's persecution and ruthless treatment of its own socialist members. And finally, Andrew Feinstein, the anti-apartheid activist who ran as an independent candidate in Keir Starmer's constituency.
All of whom are massive Corbo loyalists, and obviously people who likely realise that Zara Sultana's a bit too much of a free radical to really be leading the party in any reasonable way. Hence there was the obvious attempted coup from her. The problem with that being that if you do it wrong as she did and end up losing a whole load of money and members' data, you put these people in a lot of legal trouble, hence she's taken a bit of a back seat since then.
In September, an extraordinary split opened between Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, culminating with the former Labour leader confirming a referral to the Information Commissioner's Office over an unauthorised membership portal promoted by his co-leader. Sultana tweeted a link to a membership portal, encouraging your party members to make it official by making a payment.
I think the funniest part about this report is the tone of it is obviously this is a disaster, and the music is it's almost like from a murder documentary. You know, it's the type of music I'd expect while the narrators talk about how Jeffrey Dahmer would lure men back to his apartment to kill and eat them. But instead it's, deeply concerning music over a classic left-wing split like it always happens. The only difference between now and, say, the days of Stalin is that more people would be killed back in the day because they could get away with it. These days, because we're a lot more polite, I suppose, they just take a back seat to everything.
Corbyn's camp were blindsided. He later confirmed the site had been set up without approval, describing it as a false membership system that collected money and data without authorization. He urged supporters to ignore an earlier email requesting funds and cancel any payments. It's not the first time the Corbyn camp learned about party developments through social media.
Looking at this in hindsight, it's very funny how it's quite clearly a kind of older boomer/Gen X generation versus a, frankly, Zoomer millennial generation, where clearly the Sultana side is very fast-paced. They want to get things done very quickly without all the necessary planning that needs to go into it, where the older generation clearly has experience here in that actually things in politics do take time and you do need patience. Which is obviously where a massive split comes in, but frankly, who's ended up winning here? The boomers and Gen X.
And James, you're going to be interested in this. You probably know this already, I suspect. But Zara Sultana, the Coventry South MP, said this: Jeremy Corbyn and I will co-lead the founding of a new party with other independent MPs, campaigners and activists across the country. Reaction, James?
Well, that's a very interesting development, he says, slightly stalling for time. But that...
Did you know?
I did not know that was about to be tweeted just now, but that is, if that's true, if what you're reading is correct, then I think that's quite exciting news.
Yeah, I mean, Politics Joe are just right. This is a man who basically is a deer in the headlights and doesn't know what to say. There will have been a plan from Corbyn's side. Well, just from everyone, not even just Corbyn's side. This guy's young, he's probably more on the Sultana side, young being a relative term there. And you can quite easily tell when someone isn't prepared live to, comment on something, and it's quite clearly there, and he's trying to play it off with humour, but ultimately there will have been a plan and a timeline that they were going along with, and as he says, he didn't know that was about to be tweeted, and I don't think anyone did, because, as mentioned, Sultana's a free radical, as an awful lot of the Zoomers are. And again, this is something that you see on the right as well. Restore Britain being a good example of, frankly, a Zoomer-run right-wing political movement, I suppose you should call that. That's basically only professional looking because it has an awful lot of money going into it, which largely all came from Rupert Lowe's name and a load of people throwing their money into it. But ultimately, as I've gone through before, it's a bit of a disaster because their big ideas are make petitions that already exist and become FOI machines. And I keep an eye on what they come out with, and it's stuff we already know. Whereas obviously you keep an eye on reform, and, they are making inroads and plans to actually govern the country, which is far more interesting. And again, that's because it's largely run by boomers, Gen Xers, with the free radical millennial known as Zia Yusuf largely being on a bit of a leash, but, let off a bit from time to time, whereas obviously they've just foolishly let Zara Sultana completely off the leash, and now she is on a very tight one.
In the interim few weeks, Corbyn and Sultana have made up, put on a brave face, and even appeared at an event together in Liverpool. But the question of the missing money has been a lingering headache.
Excuse me, missing money is a little bit more than a headache. If there's missing money, you are basically asking for legal action.
So let me talk to you about one of those directors, Jamie Driscoll. Let me take you to a piece published by Sienna Rogers in House magazine. She reports that a lot of the Your Party movement stems from a book penned in 2022 by former Corbyn advisor James Schneider, entitled Our Block, How We Win.
Oh, I was wrong. The guy's firmly in the Corbyn camp, so yeah, it's no wonder that he was completely blindsided by that. Zara Sultana's side probably knew she was going to make that. This is the problem. You really do need to centralise the strategic elements within parties, otherwise you just get a mess of strategy and everyone gets confused and everyone gets put off, which is exactly what's happened to your party. which is a bit of a shame from a right-wing perspective, because if they were actually competent, you will have seen a much more even split on the left, rather than mad radicals going to Corbyn's party, slightly less mad radicals going to the Greens, and Labour NPCs sticking with Labour.
The book theorised the creation of a new party to the left of Labour that would give all of those ousted by Starmer's purge a chance again at politics. The idea begins a physical formation in late 2023 when Peace and Justice Project Director Pamela Fitzpatrick, academic Justin Schlossberg, and Corbyn's former Chief of Staff Carrie Murphy form Collective, an organisation that worked to bring together various left-wing independents and assist in their challenge to Labour's surefire win at the next election.
And if you've never heard of any of that, I don't blame you. They really did not seem to try and actually make political inroads. Possibly because, again, this plan is very long-term. People who are very good at politics will effectively try and push these things for decades, rather than blow all their load at once. Again, this is why I think Zach Polanski is going to kill the Green Party. Because what's his plan beyond use 2015 leftist talking points and shout it through a megaphone and go on the last leg to dance embarrassingly? Honestly, nothing. You know, don't get me wrong, Reform do some cringe stuff like Andrea Jenkins singing at the conference, which personally I quite liked, but a lot of people do complain about. But ultimately, that's just a show. When it comes to genuine thinking and what they're going to do in government, they're clearly taking that very seriously. The Greens aren't really. They largely, Zach Polanski especially, just wants to win effectively for the medal. I don't think he actually wants to run the country at all.
Its stated aim, much like the current iteration of your party, was to drive the formation of a new, mass membership political party of the left in the UK. Collective was involved in supporting the campaigns of several independent candidates, including Andrew Feinstein, who came second to Starmer in Holborn and St Pancras, and Leanne Mohammed, who nearly ousted Wes Streeting in Ilford North in the 2024 general election.
This will be another reason you didn't really hear about them. Very regional party, both of those are London constituency. It's a very London-centric party, which I suppose should be expected, given that basically all of these people came straight out of the Labour Party, which again is another very London-centric party, but does actually have a network outside of it. This was mainly for the radicals in London, and now obviously they're expanding to basically include Birmingham, because from the looks of it, basically every communist is in London. And then when it goes to outside London, that's when you're more depending on the, let's face it, sectarian Islamist vote, which the communists only happen to like because there's a lot of anti-Semitism in communism, so there we go.
Corbyn, of course, ran as an independent, having been expelled from the Labour Party. He wins Islington North and forms an independent alliance with Shocker Adam, Adnan Hussain and Ayub Khan, stopping short of creating a new party. By late autumn, discussion was in full swing over the creation of a new party, Collective, that would bring in figures like the former mayor Jamie Driscoll, who had built up a solid independent following away from the Labour Party under the moniker Majority. Socialists are being brought together under this umbrella.
Sorry, but I love the way that this is reported. Socialists were brought under this umbrella, but I did just mention 3 massive landlords who are actually brought under the umbrella due to the Gaza issue. And again, what's the common denominator there? Anti-Semitism. And they've really let the masks slip on that one. A lot of the independent Gazan MPs, because when it came to the Tel Aviv fans going to Aston Villa, they managed to block it, and then when they got that victory, they found mush and then said, oh, we need to stop all Israeli sports coming over to Britain, because this is all about frustrating international Jews more than it is about safety concerns for the locals, which, as it turns out, well, you still needed 700 policemen to actually deal with that issue, because there are a lot of protests there. And there are people I've heard who went there who found it very disconcerting that there was only one side of supporters in the stadium. Basically, this was a decision that nobody liked, apart from these mad Gazan independent MPs and a lot of their voters.
There are protest groups like Just Stop Oil and pressure groups like the Muslim Vote, which is an organisation that could provide counsel or funding to constituencies where an independent candidate had an opportunity to oust a Labour MP.
That's absolutely hilarious. Again, I mean, it's been said for ages, the whole watermelon vote. Oh, yeah, we're green, but really they're just communists, green on the outside, red on the inside. And then, oh, this umbrella of socialists, yeah, there's They also have the Muslim vote, which involves the Muslim Council of Britain. Again, a completely sectarian organisation that frankly just tells Muslims how they should vote, or Muslims that follow them very closely, I should say. You know, I'm not being funny, but these are two organisations that under a reform government I would genuinely expect to be completely closed down, because it's absolutely ruining the way our democracy is run.
Now we've got that out the way, I can give you these two pieces of information. Number one, when MOU operations was set up, Zara Sultana was not involved in the construction of a new party. While there is always crossover between activists and organisers, Sultana herself was not in the deliberating process.
I hate to say it, but completely correct decision from the organisers. She's clearly nothing but trouble. She basically was put in as co-leader to try and get an awful lot of Zoomers in. That's quite clearly what the point was. Unfortunately, that actually did kind of backfire, because now all the Zoomers are quite annoyed at this party, because unfortunately they see Zara Sultana being put in the back seat as a bit of a, oh, I guess they don't want us hyperactive Zoomers and millennials in. And ultimately the Gen X and above vote for socialism is, well, looks like it's a bit of a dying breed, which is where the sectarian vote comes in to make up for it, I suppose.
Number two, Jamie Driscoll takes on this role as Director of MOU Operations because he is a respected politician with a track record of delivering in the North East. Someone had to put their name down, and it made sense with his background for it to be him.
He's also a Corbyn loyalist. That'll be another reason for that, but I don't think Politics Joe really wants to say that, because at the end of the day, Politics Joe do want your party to succeed, because it is full of socialists.
It's not until July, 2 months after this limited company is set up, that an online meeting convened by Salma Yaqub takes place. Yaqub is the leader of Respect Party, sitting on Birmingham City Council, and a leading member of Collective, the original coagulation of your party.
Okay, makes sense. Again, the point of your party is to bring all of these splits together, and unfortunately it seems to have just created more splits since then.
A vote was passed in favour of forming a party co-led by Corbyn and Sultana. Corbyn and his allies had abstained as they wished to wait until a conference setting up a new party was held to vote on the leadership.
Yeah, I mean, the left are just obsessed with voting for leaders. It's the thing I find really funny about reform and everyone who keeps complaining that, oh, technically Farage was never voted in. Yeah, I'm not being funny, but 250,000+ people don't join a party expecting to entry and then change leader straight away, which for some reason a lot of people thought that that was a good idea to have. I'll just make sure that people want Farage. Sorry, but hundreds of thousands of people literally join the party because Farage is leader. Absolutely pointless exercise. Whereas with the left, they unironically believe that because ultimately they just love wasting time. Effectively, I think it's part of a form of narcissism, to be honest with you, because ultimately these are people that just want nothing but their voices heard, and if they have a vote on a leader straight away, then they feel like their voices are being heard. But ultimately it just wastes time, and this is why I prefer the way Reform run things, because it's effectively it's more of an idea of, we lead, you follow. Here's what we are going to do, follow us. And, you know, people have left because of that, and loads of people have joined because of that. And it seems to be much more effective. Just look at the polls.
A couple of days later, Sultana goes live on Twitter announcing she's co-leading a new party. Behind the scenes, Corbyn asks her to delete the tweet.
Again, an awful lot of these splits literally just come down to smarter, older boomers who are wiser and know that actually this is a patient game, and hyperactive Zoom millennials who want things done as quick as possible because, oh, we can get like 50% of the polling if we just make a party right now. Which isn't even realistic, by the way, but these people are so narcissistic that they think everyone will just follow them because they have such great ideas, despite the fact that they've rarely actually scrutinised them properly. Which again is a thing I like about Reform. They've unfortunately had to roll back on quite a few tax pledges they made in the contract of 2024 election, but it's because that they took the scrutiny seriously. I appreciate that. You don't really get that with Corbyn and, well, the Labour Party, I was about to say, but really the Corbyn allies who are all communists.
I've given you a lot of information here, so let's sit back and take stock of what I'm explaining.
Sorry, I do hate to say it, but it really does not really reflect well on your audience that in a 10-minute video it takes 5 minutes of quite basic explanations of what's going on between what comes down to about 3 factions on the left, and you have to stop near the end of the video to say, right, that's a lot of information, let's just make it concise again. You don't have to do that. This is already a concise video, and it's, I mean, complimentary this, it's actually quite easy to follow. I don't. How bad is your audience that you need to re-explain everything you've just said? You know, if I make a video on gilt yields, I will do something like this, but that's because gilt yields and interest rates and all that are actually quite complex to follow. Quantitative easing as well. When it comes to what's happened with things in Advanced UK or with Rupert Lowe, I really find that I'm repeating myself, because it's all quite easy to follow, and it's exactly the same here. A bunch of older Corbynites want to go slow, a bunch of Sultana Zoo millennials wants to go very quickly. That caused a ruckus because Sultana just went ahead and did her own thing anyway. All the boomers got mad at her, and now she takes a back seat. What, do you have to go through names again to explain that? I don't think so.
For around 3 years, discussion and deliberations over what a new left-wing coalition would look like. It's a huge umbrella organisation that sought to bring together multiple pressure and campaign groups, some of whom had already demonstrated success in the recent general election, like Liane Mohammed losing to West Streeting by a mere 500 votes.
I'm skipping this re-explanation because that was probably the least important part of all of this. Yeah, I know, you already said that it's an umbrella of socialist organisations. You obviously miss out that it also includes sectarian Muslim organisations, but, you know, we'll skip that for now because that's actually, if you were realistic, a bad thing. But oh, you're left-wing, you can't say bad things about Corbyn. That would be terrible.
The plan had always been centred around Corbyn or Corbynism, the major players having worked in Lotto during his tenure as Labour leader. The rift between Sultana and Corbyn splintered long before the party's conception, and the two camps are still at odds today on a number of issues.
I think this is the funniest part of it. No, they're not at odds on issues. They're on odds at how quickly they should be doing this. It's the hilarious thing I also find about the Advance Party and also all the Rupert Lowe fans. They're going remarkably slow, to the point where Ben Habib had to make a really long Twitter post explaining actually we're going slow because we're totally serious and actually coming up with a policy plan. Whereas realistically, I think it's just because he's bitten off more than he can chew and he's basically too sunk into this idea to actually back out of it. With Rupert Lowe's just... no, lazy is the wrong word. Rupert Lowe just only really cares about Great Yarmouth and doesn't really care about the national issues anymore. He leaves that largely to his Restore Britain team and the team in his office to basically write up things he should say about national issues. Really, he just wants to be loved by his local constituents, which, to be honest with you, is quite admirable. I've come to a point of not actually really hating Lowe anymore. And really the people I hate who I think deserve it a lot more are his team, who are basically just there to sow chaos and, frankly, at this point, are trying to revive the Tories. And realistically, I don't think any of the people who work for Lowe are going to find easy employment after Lowe stops being an MP, which could actually be after the next election, assuming they all vote Reform, but who knows.
So where is the money, you ask me? Well, to explain that, I'm going to have to read you this part of the three former directors' statement. They said, after the confusing launch of two membership systems on the 18th and 24th of September, neither of which we had any part in, we faced the added complication of MOU holding data and membership records. We urgently took legal advice, and on the 29th of September we wrote to the Your Party leadership asking them to take complete ownership and control of MOU. This would have handed over all the data, money and everything else to Your Party. 5 of the 6 MPs declined.
Yeah, given it was Zara Sultana going hell to leather trying to get this pushed, it was obviously her who accepted this, and the rest of Your Party said no because it would basically give her too much power within the party. And a lot of members were actually quite angry at Zara Sultana for doing this because this was all happening before they even had a vote on who should even be leader. It was quite an obvious coup, and I wouldn't be shocked if she was being advised to do this by a load of impatient advisors on her side, but ultimately it's come to bite her in the back.
Your party demanded control of MOU's assets without accepting control of MOU itself. This would have left us to deal with the liabilities and the costs from the confused membership launches. We cannot accept personal liability for actions that were taken without our knowledge or approval, nor could we agree to a proposed resolution that put MOU at risk of having liabilities exceeding its assets. We explained in detail why these proposals were not tenable. We were told that refusal will result in public condemnation. We have tried many times to hand over everything to Your Party, lock, stock and barrel. You cannot simply hand over data without following GDPR regulations. Not everyone understands company law or GDPR. In simple terms, we offered to hand over ownership to Your Party and make the 6 Your Party MPs directors in our place, giving them full control. Only one of the 6 was willing to agree.
And this is the problem you run into when you don't get the free radicals under control. You just end up in a situation where nobody wants to touch you with a 10-foot barge pole because you want nothing but trouble.
It later concludes that Zara Sultana has agreed to become the sole member and director of MOU with a commitment to use the resources for your party. Now that's really important. Commitment. Nothing is signed.
Even more reason to not touch the company with a 10-foot barge pole. This could literally have all been avoided if everything was done to the timeline agreed with the rest of the party, but no, the Zoo Millennials couldn't help themselves, and it caused a massive rift in the party that still exists to this day, and now they're barely polling at 5%. They were over 12% at one point, and Zara Sultana pulling this move ended up basically destroying it before it even got started. It's incredible, really.
The problem is, if the money is extracted and the company isn't transferred as a whole, you're in a potential legal battle. You can't liquidate a company when you're facing potential action from people who have paid into a pot under debatably false auspices.
Which is why your party don't want any part of it, by the way, and this is why Zara Sultana's an idiot, because if she's sole director of MOU and she's in this legal battle, she is solely liable for it. Corbyn and the rest of them don't want any part of that legal battle. And obviously, spoiler alert, they actually lost an awful lot of the data too, which does not comply with GDPR.
There's concern that the money that was paid in will need to be refunded, and that's something your party need to do as a company, or, well, as an organisation. Bankrupting an organisation that may have financial recourse, well, it's illegal. Hence the hyper-focus of transferring the whole thing over. But, most of the members in the Independent Alliance don't want to take on the indemnities or risk. Signing over the transfer from Winter, Driscoll and Feinstein to the Independent Alliance means they would be liable for returning funds. And it's not that simple to return funds. It actually does cost money as well as the original sum to do that.
Plus you're in that big legal battle that's potentially there. Yeah, I don't blame any of these people for not doing it, and Zara Sultana's a bit of a moron for accepting it. But really, what do you expect? Shrewd businessmen make a shrewd decision when it comes to the running of a company and not taking one over that is basically nothing but toxic waste. Zoo Millennial, who has no experience in the private sector, does do that anyway.
For now, Zara Sultana has control of the company. Let me read you her statement. The MOU directors were already in the process of transferring ownership and all of the resources of MOU, and that legal process is now nearing completion. I am taking on the role of director of MOU to see this through and ensure we're ready for the conference at the end of November. The movement owes Jamie Driscoll, Beth Winter and Andrew Feinstein a debt of gratitude for their integrity, professionalism and hard work. They've been patient, constructive and consistently sought to resolve matters diplomatically. Thank you for your patience. This brings the chapter to a close, and these resources will now be used for your party, as was always intended.
Again, this could have all just been avoided if she waited an extra month. That's all she had to do, but she couldn't do that. And now instead of doing any refunds, it's now all going to actually be used by your party with, I suppose, Zara Sultana having all liabilities for said company. Possibly part of the reason that she's actually still in the party is because she effectively said, fine, I will take the fall for this if it all goes wrong, and we will still use the data and the money for your party, despite the fact that they said they lost the data.
Zara Sultana has said the money will be used in total to fund your party, and there's no reason to suggest that it wouldn't. However, there may be discrepancies when certain refunds have to be paid. Whose money is that going to come out of, and will that fund the campaigning effort of your party? There is also the conference that is going ahead at the end of November, where the finer minutiae or the detail will be worked out. The question is, why does it have to be so difficult? And why won't they all simply work together?
Because politics is the human condition on steroids. I mean, yeah, from the outside, oh, why can't they all just kiss and make up? They want 95% of the same things anyway. Well, I mean, if you look into the sectarian MPs who are all landlords, that's not actually true. But nobody is even trying to hint at this is where the problems arise. It's all from an outlook of effectively slow and steady wins the race, or just go hell for leather and see what works type of strategy. That's where the actual problem arises. It's nothing actually ideological. And well, why not just join the Greens then? Because these people want to run the damn things themselves, because a lot of socialists are narcissists. That's why. Anyway, the launch conference did actually go ahead, and Politics Joe covered it, so let's get into that.
I was suspended the first time for calling Emily Thornberry spineless. The second time, I was a bit of a whistleblower. And then the third time was during the general election. I said I'm not supporting the Labour candidate in Islington North. I was in the front page of the Tribune calling him a scab.
This is exactly the type of person you do not want in your party, by the way. A literal walking red flag. It's even funny that he's wearing nothing but red, where effectively this man is signalling to you, I am going to cause frustration in your party if you are not 100% behind what I want to be behind. Not the most ideal person you want in your party, and, well, your party is going to be full of these people because a lot of them are going to be people suspended from the Labour Party, who, yes, there is more ideological coherence for them within your party, but before it even launched, there were people trying to frustrate the launch of it, so what do you expect to happen?
On Monday evening, your party announced its long-anticipated membership figure, standing at 50,000. The figure was well short of the 200,000 members expected by party insiders, owing to a massive 800,000 people having expressed interest when it first launched.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between people expressing interest and willing to put their money where their mouth is, isn't there? This is why Reform, having a massive amount of people join them, is actually very impressive, because ultimately people are willing to pay 25 quid to join the party. Having said that, the Green Party is actually £60 a month, so their increase in membership is actually even more impressive, unless it's all students who get a reduced rate, or people are just lying about being owed a reduced rate. And your party is actually £5 a month, unless again you are on the concessionary fee, in which case it's £1.50 a month, which totals to about £18 a year, or obviously 60 if you are not lying about having a concessionary charge. So they're actually both rather more expensive than Reform. That might explain why they only got 50,000 people, but well, there we go. And let's be real, there's a reason that they didn't reach 100,000. It's because it's just been a mess since launch.
It's fair to say the lower than expected figure has been taken as a warning that factional infighting and a strong Green Party leadership has damaged its immediate prospect.
Oh yeah, that also won't have helped. They've had a ridiculous increase of about 50,000 members, and to be honest with you, part of that might have been driven by the fact that the Corbyn-Sultana party has just been a complete and utter mess, and the Greens are more open to the Zoo millennial idea of just go hell for leather, which, as I'm predicting right now, is probably going to end up actually being detrimental for the party rather than helping it. Unironically, they should have kept with Carla Denyer.
There is, of course, still the case of missing donations, with Sultana now in control of the £800,000 that she has assured Corbyn will at some point be transferred to the party as a whole.
Again, I just love the reporting on this. It's a bit more whimsical, this report, I have to say. Almost a kind of, we think this is a bit of a joke.
In Islington on Monday, the room was packed with former Labour members and voters. The worry is, can your party hold their attention if tensions continue?
I do kind of mean this. Your party would be much better to just get rid of Zara Sultana at this point. If they can keep her on a leash, it will be fine, but I don't think they'll be able to. I think she'll get frustrated and defect to the Greens. I do mean that, because they're more in line with what she actually wants. I think she's only staying there because a lot of people are advising her sticking with Corbyn will help her popularity. Genuinely, I think that's what they think.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to all the volunteers that have worked so hard to put this event on, those that have done it online or giving out leaflets or putting up posters or inviting people to come along. Thank you very, very much indeed.
I know Corbyn's getting old and all that, but that is a very low-energy opening speech, I have to say. I mean, again, bringing Advance back into this, Ben Habib has clearly not been reaching targets that he wanted to, and even he's pretending to be more high-energy than this, despite the fallbacks that he's having.
This is Corbyn's constituency, and it's clear tonight is really about him. There is a palpable lack of Zara Sultana. In fact, during a brief interlude, an homage to Corbyn rolls on in the background. One press officer is keen to point out to me this was put together by the local party and not your party officials, which possibly explains the opening cheers of "Oh Jeremy Corbyn" and noticeable absence of Zara Sultana.
Yeah, again, this is quite clearly a move to put Zara Sultana in her place. She does not have the power that she did before going hell for leather beforehand. Total mistake from her part, as I have gone throughout this. And unfortunately, it's put a black mark on the party as a whole, hence, yeah, a lot of people went to the Greens instead.
All the more noticeable when Corbyn talks about his colleagues in the Independent Alliance.
It is a wonderful experience, and it shows how politics can be done differently, which is why I want us to do things rather differently. And we then decided, after the election and the election of 4 of my colleagues as independent MPs into Parliament, that's where they all won as independents, and we formed an independent alliance group of MPs in Parliament. We come together initially on Gaza, and we come together on most other issues. It's an independent alliance of the willing on the issues on which we can work together.
Again, read between the lines. What's the only thing they actually agreed on there? Gaza. What's one thing that they absolutely don't agree on? Landlordism. Is that going to be brought up at all? No, because ultimately all that really matters to these people is frustrating the politics as they exist. It's not a good long-term strategy, despite the fact that the strategy here is clearly to be successful long-term and take it slow. But getting over those internal contradictions, it's going to cause a lot of issues, and the Green Party will largely be the same as well, by the way.
Speaking to people that night, it was hard to find a fully paid up member. It was also noticeable how many people admired the politics of Zach Polansky.
Sorry, the launch party didn't have paid up members. I know there's a mailing list, but they just let people in who didn't pay up? Do they actually have 50,000 members? Sorry, but that is very odd to have a conference and you allow people who haven't even paid up to join it. That is incredible.
Sorry to say, but Starmer's killed Labour. He's killed the core ideology of it being a Labour Party for the people. It doesn't feel like it's for the people anymore.
No, it hasn't been for a long time, and I don't know why people pretend it has been. I guess because Corbyn was in charge. And he had the right vibes and all that.
I think Zach Polansky's doing a great job, and it's very much leftist socialist speak, which is, I think, where most of us align to. I think the majority of us, especially if you're not political, we are just looking for somewhere that is kind.
It's kind of amazing. I expect this from a Zoomer, not from someone who, sorry to be rude, looks like she's in her 30s, but I suppose one thing you really need to bear in mind is actually the millennials are nearly 40 now. The oldest millennials are nearly 40. So you shouldn't be too surprised by this, because for some reason the millennials are absolutely in love with Labour and left-wing politics. Yet despite all this, I think genuinely right-wing politics is kind of on the rise, which you would expect. And I think it's only going to get stronger as time goes on, because if Reform get in and actually do manage to make changes that actually help fix the economy, that's going to make them very popular, because at the end of the day, people don't really care where the answers actually come from, or most normies don't anyway. As long as they're actually able to have more disposable income and actually able to pay for rent that doesn't take up more than half of their wage, they're going to be very, very happy. A lot of people seem to think that, oh, well, the left have the answers, without really realising that we've actually had left-wing answers being put in place for literal decades. So this is just another attempt to effectively have someone explicitly left-wing in charge rather than trying to look right-wing while putting left-wing policies in place. Hence, again, Reform are doing really well now, because thankfully quite a few people have noticed, oh, the problem with the Tories is that they said they do a load of right-wing things and did basically none of them.
I left the Labour Party because they don't represent me. They haven't represented me since Mr Starmer took over. I'm not going to call him sir because I don't believe in all that sort of thing. And I think they've gone downhill. They said they're trying to ape Reform. They're trying to get votes by being more like Reform than Reform are.
Oh, they are nowhere near being even close to what Reform are. But yeah, it makes sense to try and deal with the biggest issue currently in the British zeitgeist at the moment, which is immigration, closely followed behind, obviously, by the cost of living crisis.
And you can't outdo a Nazi by trying to be more Nazi than them. You've got to stand up and you've got to tell them they're Nazis. Again,
something I'd expect a Zoomer to say, but this guy's a boomer. So, wow, incredible. People like this actually exist. Well, you got Zach Polansky doing that, and it might be going well for him in the short term, but when it turns out he's got absolutely nothing more than calling right-wingers Nazis, I don't know what you expect him to do.
I feel like we've not had a real left-wing probably since the Greens. I see them with them. I feel like they were a bit slow to the mark, and I feel like the party is bringing a different energy. It is vibrant, there's young people involved, and yeah.
That was quite hard to hear, but effectively this is one of those Zoomers that want to go hell for leather. I do find it funny that the point that they made at the start was, oh, we can't find any paid up members. Oh, and also Zach Polansky is brought up a lot. Nobody actually said that in the people that they put in the interviews here, so I don't know why they started with that, but there we go.
One thing was for certain, people shared a fundamental mistrust of Labour and a fundamental mistrust of the media.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people choose their political parties. A lot of the time it's, I don't trust X, Y, or Z party. Reformers don't trust Tories. Advancers don't trust Reform. Basically, no one trusts the media, aside from people still in the main political parties. There were Tories defending the BBC the other day, for God's sake. So I'm not surprised to hear this. There is obviously horseshoe theory going on it. But I am very confused as to why they might not trust the Greens, or why they haven't joined the Greens. Or maybe these people are Green Party members spying on your party, who knows?
We're being disempowered as people. We're being disempowered by the media. We're being disempowered by social media. And we're sort of told we don't really have any power to achieve anything.
Sorry, but this is an absolutely ridiculous thing for Corbyn to say. The media, possibly fair enough, but that's only because his ideas were mental. Social media, though, complete opposite. Corbynistas still basically own Twitter, despite what Elon Musk has done. I mean, obviously, the American equivalent is the people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's killing, for instance, and that... You could get people mocking Charlie Kirk's death to like 1 million likes. Sorry, you still own social media as much as Musk has tried to balance the books there.
And that means that in communities all over the country, where children are growing up in desperate poverty,
mostly in council houses,
where housing conditions are appalling,
also mostly in council houses,
where the health service is barely functioning.
Yeah, the NHS sucks. It's had more money than ever. How do you square that circle? Envy of the world, but it doesn't function. Socialists can never square that circle. Not going to lie at this point, this is stuff that we all heard Corbyn saying over and over when he was leader of the Labour Party. I'm bored of it already. Let's get back to the Vox Pops.
It feels like we're living in a bit of a dystopic nightmare, and when you've got a government full of human rights lawyers that lie.
Yeah, politicians lie. Not being funny, Jeremy Corbyn lies too, so I don't know why you expect anything better from there.
That are not holding up our human rights. We've got one that didn't pay her taxes. We've got another one that was lying about the football match and making, hooligans seem like we're all being anti-Semitic because we didn't want hooligans.
I reckon this woman's actually being sincere when she thinks that it was just hooligans. I think she can be fooled by that. But yeah, what this woman's complaining about is politics 101. Yeah, politicians lie. Well done. I don't know why you're expecting better from this particular party, given that I suppose you're expecting landlords to be abolished, and they're not going to be when 4 of the MPs who run the damn thing are landlords.
This conflation of people's needs, musts, with political party aims and objectives, I think people are fed up of.
What's the actual aims and objectives here? Because the only thing that's actually been cited by Corbyn himself so far is the Gaza issue. That seems to be the only thing that everyone agrees on. So again, I don't know what your expectations are, but the landlord issue is such a kill shot here, because if you expect landlords to be abolished, it's not happening. And honestly, I don't think it will with the Greens either, because it's one of the most ridiculous ideas that I can think of. Landlordism is good. I don't care what socialists have to say about it.
When Keir Starmer quoted Enoch Powell...
Oh, that's enough of Corbyn. That's not what he did. If he did it, it'd be hella base. No, what people were saying is that he was echoing Enoch Powell, as in hitting a similar note of the old Birmingham speech, which is that having mass migration is going to cause tensions between communities. Oh, and it did. Anyway, we'll move on to the Vox Pops.
Our job is to offer something else.
The question now is, how is it going to work in practice leading up to the deciding November conference held in Liverpool? And will they be able to deliver the people-powered organisation promised at its outset?
It's a very good question, and I suppose I'll have to wait for your report at the end of the month on that. But honestly, not many people seem excited by your party anymore. Literal flash in the pan. Everyone's moving to the Greens now, and it really reflects badly on them, to be honest. Corbyn's not cool anymore. I never thought I'd see the day.
If we could actually change it from this pyramidical structure of top down or even bottom up and change it more to a spherical structure, which is core aims and beliefs, maybe a code of ethics in the centre as the core, and then lots of satellites of like-minded people, because we all have our tribes. And I think first and foremost in this new political climate is being able to trust the person that we are calling to be our leaders. So to have that transparency and that trusting relationship comes in smaller groups. So to have a main core and lots of satellites where we all feed into that main bureaucracy what we want, rather than it being fed out from there.
You've just re-described a bottom-up mentality. What are you on about? Yeah, I don't want a triangle in any way. I just want kind of a sphere. and then goes on to explain a bottom-up mentality using a central core with satellites. That's all that happened there. It's a very common thing. This doesn't just happen on the left, it happens on the right too, but a lot of people will explain a very core and simple concept in their own way to try and feel original, and what's happened here is that she has done exactly that. She has explained bottom-up organisation using a different metaphor to try and make it sound different when it's no different to, as I say, bottom-up organisation.
You know, we've been buying into a fallacy for way too long, and I think Zach has brought this up quite well, that, you know, the economy is like balancing your household account. It is not. It is not. It is the opposite of that. The economy is here to make sure that we can live in safety and be productive and be prosperous. Once we have that base, we all feed into it and we make it work. It's not the other way around.
What God's name are you talking about? What do you think the economy is? They think it's this like abstract being that's there to effectively pay for everyone's needs. No, sorry, that the economy is human action. It's the amalgamation of an entire population and how they effectively work with each other and how productive they are with each other and in relation to each other. When it comes to public finances, which is what people mean when they talk about the household budget thing, of course it's true. We're in debt. A lot of what we are paying in the public sector is actually for interest on debt. It's like 15 billion a year or something like that now. That's completely unsustainable. If you were in a house and your debt was the same as all your assets plus your yearly wage, you'd be bankrupt. That's where we are as a country, by the way. Literally bankrupt. You can't just pay for things because you will it. This is what Labour are learning, oddly enough. Same thing would happen with these socialists, but in fact I think they'd get kicked out of power quite quickly because they just say, oh, it's the media saying this, so we don't have to believe it. Anyway, I think at this point we've gone through what your party is all about, and it is literally just Corbynism with people hoping for the best, but there's absolutely no real passion behind it from what I can tell. It's literally just a backbench kind of ego trip from what I can tell, with people trying to push Corbyn to the centre because he's popular. It's going to be entryismed hard, it's going to go even more communist, the landlords at the top are going to get fed up with it, tell people, no, you can't do that, like they did with Zara Sultana, and it's going to fall apart and they're all going to go green. This is a disaster for the right, by the way, because it means the Greens can end up with more seats, which we don't want because they're mad. But you never know. I mean, my prediction is also that the Greens will collapse as well, and you'll just have a split on the left again. And that's not just hopium, I think that's what's genuinely going to happen. Because the ideas are too old and increpid. If Corbyn couldn't win Labour an election against Theresa May, he doesn't have a chance of a comeback, I'm afraid to say. Especially with Reform doing so well. Right, with that I think that's everything I had for you for today. So tonight there is a Tosh Talks, tomorrow it's the gaming stream, Friday it's Wolves of Westminster, and then there will be no Tosh the week after, but the rest of the streams will be back, along with Laughing at the Guardian, which won't be this week, but will be next week. Right, like, subscribe, join the channel as a member, all that good stuff really helps out the channel. And with that, that's everything I had for you for today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.